So let's be official. This is the beginning of Esoteric Astrology Adventure, number 127C, page 507. We've been dealing with the listing of the sacred and non-sacred planets. We've looked at the unusual order, neither the ray order nor distance from the sun order, in which the sacred planets are listed, but it corresponds fairly closely to a look at the synthesizing planets, the three of them. And they are, as it were, in a certain order. Well, we can call it, in this case, 7, 8, 9, but we could also call it 5, 6, 7. Because in this particular map, non-sacred planets are also listed. Two of the non-sacred planets, Mars and the Earth, giving, instead of a 7, a 9. And the non-sacred planets, and why in this order? Mars, the Earth, and Pluto. Well, there's certainly a triangle there. Just as there is a Vulcan, Pluto, and Earth triangle, the Moon is veiling a hidden planet. In this case, it's got to be non-sacred. There have been some who are on the trail of undiscovered planets, and they've called this hidden planet by the name Rex, because the Moon is the king of planets, as it's sometimes said in the secret doctrine, and Rex means king. And there is said to be such a planet, although it may have not very happy effects. And the Sun is veiling a planet, but it's not called a hidden planet. Is it something we can see or something we can know? It's not hidden, and yet it has to be non-sacred. Well, when you really look at this order, we'll talk about the order, but pretty much as I have looked at it, it's the Moon with the dense physical, Earth etheric, Mars astral, Pluto mental, although we could switch those two around. Mars has a very mental meaning as well, but certainly with the strong sixth ray has much to do with the astral body. And the Sun dealing with the synthesis of those four. That's kind of a Brahmic personality. The number 5 can mean Brahma, and in this case 5 can be the number of the personality when you consider it as integrated and including 4 aspects and not 3. If we divide the lower etheric physical into 2. It is interesting to note that the non-sacred planets rule. Now he's going to talk about the houses. The 1st, the 4th, the 5th, and the 8th houses in the lesser zodiac. By the lesser, the houses are, in a sense, the lesser zodiac. That's how he refers to it. Houses are the lesser zodiac. So Mars is the ruler of the 1st house, which is the Rishan house. The Moon, the ruler of the 4th house. The Cancerian house. The Sun, the ruler of the 5th house. The Leonian house. And Pluto, in this case, the ruler of the 8th house, which is associated with Scorpio. So here we have, let's call it Mars, Aries. And the 4th, let's just put it down. I think it would be good to have Cancer and Moon. And the 5th is what we would call Leo, Sun, and the 8th is what we would call Scorpio, Pluto. Our Earth is also a non-sacred planet, but it doesn't rule any particular house. In a way, it is involved in all of them. If we were on another planet, and the Earth would be considered as the ruler of Gemini, or maybe Sagittarius, the Earth might rule, or Taurus even, the Earth might rule the 2nd house, or the Earth might rule the 9th house of Sagittarius if we were on another planet. And looking out into the solar system, and the Earth was one of those factors we had to use in our astrology as contributing a particular, probably at this time, divisive influence. So our Earth is also a non-sacred planet, and you have therefore 4 non-sacred planets controlling or ruling a 5th non-sacred planet, a correspondence to the 4 aspects of the lower man. Earth is also a non-sacred planet. You have 4 non-sacred planets, and how can we say that they are controlling a 5th non-sacred planet? Is that 5th non-sacred planet the moon in some way? Controlling, or is it the moon or the sun? This is an interesting statement. Or unless simply the 5th non-sacred planet is the Earth. 4 non-sacred planets controlling or ruling a 5th, which is the Earth. It's possible. I don't know how to go further with that at the moment. You have there, first, the physical outer shell, okay, the etheric or vital body, the astral body and the mental body, plus the fusion with the 5th body, the personality. Now, this is almost certainly, this 5th body is represented by the sun. So, what controls what? The sun, in a way, controls all of these and could be considered the 5th. So the 5th non-sacred planet could be considered the sun. Is it listed that way in the numbers? Yes, it is. So these lesser ones are in a way controlling or ruling a greater one, the 5th, just the way the planets being lesser than the constellations control or rule them. It appears that the sun is the 5th quote-unquote planet and is ruled or controlled in the astrological sense by the other 4. The task of our planetary logos and of all advanced human beings is clearly to be seen. From a larger and more synthetic attitude, you have the 4 kingdoms in nature and the veiled 5th kingdom, the kingdom of God. And this corresponds to the sun. The sun, with its illumination, corresponds to the kingdom of souls. And it's veiled. Right now it's veiled by humanity, but increasingly to be revealed by the human mind. So the 5th almost certainly is the sun, and this is the first time, or one of the only places, this is one of the only places where the number of the personality is given as the 5. But 5 is the Brahmic number associated with the 3rd aspect of divinity, as is the personality. So it makes sense. Or when I say it makes sense, generally I'm saying it stands to reason. Apparently. Or it appears to stand to reason, but it may be knocked down later and not stand at all, but right now it appears to. Now we go on, and it says, from still another angle, we have Aries ruled by Mars. This is going to correlate with the first house. We have Cancer ruled by the moon, but it veils a sacred planet. And that's going to be Neptune, and maybe the unsacred planet, non-sacred planet that is veiled by the moon in the non-sacred series of planets will have some kind of connection with Neptune. We'll have to wait until it emerges and see what the history of any one of us might be in relation to some of these non-sacred planets. We are told there are some disintegrating planets fairly near the Earth, which are responsible for some of the very difficult situations on the Earth, including cruelty among children. Interesting. Leo is ruled by the sun, and it veils a sacred planet, possibly the planet Uranus or Vulcan. Esoterically, it also veils Neptune, just like the moon veils Neptune. We're told there's a triple Neptune rulership in Cancer. So this statement correlates with the triple Neptune rulership of Cancer. And Scorpio ruled by Pluto. So this is an angle, and we have both sacred and non-sacred planets potentially connected with all the houses. Well, if we use the hierarchical rulers, maybe with Scorpio we can't find any sacred planets. Pluto and Mars are not. But the Sun, though considered non-sacred, also veils a sacred planet. Neptune, esoterically anyway. And Neptune is the esoteric ruler, but the Moon even veils it in its orthodox position. Generally, we can find higher and spiritual meanings for the houses, of course. And there's no house which is strictly exoteric, though maybe more commonly understood as exoteric. Even the fifth house, I mean, it looks like pleasure and children and creations, but it's also in a way the creativity of the causal body, the expression of the egoic lotus, expression of the soul, not just self-expression, personality expression. We look at the fourth house, we can say, well, it's the home. It's very concrete. It's one's physical basis, even one's dense physical vehicle, but it's also the ashram, the place of spiritual refuge. The first house might simply look like the physical body, or bodies of different kinds, but it can be the causal body, and it can be not just the personal identity, but can be a deeper type of identity, the soul identity. The eighth house looks like death, but from another point of view, it can indicate transformation in consciousness. So there's really no house which is limited to strictly exoteric meanings, though there is a tendency in that direction. You will note that Pluto and not Mars is here mentioned by me as a non-sacred planet ruling Scorpio. Well, sometimes Mars is mentioned, but in this context, why? That's what we want to know. In this context, why? The reason for this is that there is a relation between Mars and Pluto analogous to that between Venus and Earth. Esoterically, Mars is the alter ego of Pluto. The activity of Pluto at this time and in this lesser world cycle is very important on account of its esoteric approach to the Earth. Does that have something to do with the inner principles, with its soul, with its monad? Oftentimes, strangely, the word esoteric can mean monad, impelled thereto by the vivification of its life by a display of Martian energy. So how can we put this? Like this. Mars, the alter ego of Pluto, has stimulated Pluto. And the stimulated Pluto can make an esoteric approach to Earth. So there is a triangle here, and Mars seems to have initiated the process going on with this triangle. But although Pluto is oftentimes considered an esoteric planet, it is not necessarily a sacred planet. Well, if Mars is the alter ego and therefore higher than that to which it is an alter ego, Pluto is not going to be sacred, even though it is esoteric. So Pluto may be, in a sense, esoteric, but not sacred. The Earth, Mars, and Pluto form an interesting triangle with Venus behind the scene, acting as an impelling soul, acts to a rapidly integrating personality. And I think what we'll have to see here is that the Earth represents the physical etheric nature, Mars the astral nature and Pluto the mental nature, though we could turn this around. The place in this rapidly integrating personality does not necessarily indicate the planetary status, because the Earth has a higher status than either Mars or Pluto, because Earth is almost a non-sacred planet, Mars is not, and if Mars is higher than Pluto, then acting as its alter ego, just as Venus acts as alter ego to Earth, then Pluto is not going to be a sacred planet. It's going to be of lower status than Mars, even though it might rule the mental vehicle in this rapidly integrating personality. Mars, of course, has a lot to do with the five senses and with the mental vehicle, and Pluto can contribute to the disappearance of certain problems into the smoke and darkness of Hades. So both Mars and Pluto have a meaning connected with the solar plexus center, and both have a mental component, and since one is the alter ego of the other, they could have certain similarities. When you look at the alter ego relationship of Venus and our Earth, the second ray personality, or perhaps monad, of Venus corresponds to the second ray soul of Earth. There are no other immediate correspondences unless we were to know the other rays. Maybe there's a fourth ray somehow in both of them. But third and fifth rays seem to operate in various ways in relation to Mars and Pluto. And they both probably have a strong first ray, and since they're both connected with the solar plexus center, well, let's see how DK describes this. Smoke, Hades. Oh, maybe not Hades. Solar plexus. Smoke and dark. How does he do it? Two of the other non-sacred planets, Mars and Pluto, function in connection with the sacral center Mars and the solar plexus Pluto. Oh, well, this could give us a reason for reversing. This latter planet becomes alive in the life of the man who is becoming alive in the higher sense. His lower nature passes into the smoke and darkness of Pluto. Solar plexus for Pluto. Interesting. So the solar plexus is directly related to the astral plane. The smoke and darkness of Pluto, who governs the lesser burning ground, in order that man may live in truth in the higher land of light. So does Pluto, in some way, connection with Scorpio, govern a burning ground on the way to the second initiation? This is a possibility, but, let's just say it is not entirely clear. Shall Mars or Pluto rule the astral body or mental body? The Mars is connected with the sacral center, and in the sacral center is found the lower mental elemental. Pluto is connected with the solar plexus, which relates to the astral body. So, in terms of order at least, we know that Mars is a higher planet than Pluto, and to a certain extent, the mental body is a higher vehicle than the astral body. Pluto could, in fact, rule the astral body. They both can rule either the astral body or mental body, but from this point of view, it seems that Pluto could be well placed in relation to the astral body, astral plane, Hades, another name, or the astral plane, at least in some of its aspects, lower aspects. So the astral plane, on the astral plane, hell is found, and Pluto is the ruler of the underworld. So maybe Mars, which Mars is closer to Venus and should take a higher position. I've looked at this in different ways. I've sometimes said that Mars is definitely the ruler of the astral body and Pluto of the mental body, because in a way it is so very mental, a planet so much involved with research, but then Mars does rule lower science and the five senses, and is closely related to Venus. And it rules the entire personality, and on the mental plane, the entire personality is, in a sense, created around the mental unit. And so if Venus represents the soul, it would be engaging with Mars. And then Pluto and the moon, Pluto, Earth, and moon would represent another triangle, but of course moon is part of the of our planetary logos. So let's leave it at that, and I'm, certainly entertaining at this point that Pluto could be the ruler of the astral body, since it has so much to do with the solar plexus center, and Mars with the sacral center, which is the home of the mental elemental, which connects it to the concrete mind. This triangle should not be forgotten when casting the horoscope, because it indicates a relation and a possibility which can be, though it often is not, a major determining factor prior to passing on to the probationary path. Now, in the fifth petal, one passes onto the path of probation. So we have the Earth, we have Mars, and we have Pluto. Well, what's interesting here, if we number clockwise from Pisces as the first, which it often is, Scorpio will rule the fifth petal, and Mars and Pluto will be part of the drastic process passed through in this petal. The Earth represents the cross experienced as the wheel begins to turn in two directions, opposing energy currents, which can cause a lot of stress to the individual. His usual reaction is to go backward towards personality process, but it's also possible for him to go forward towards a higher power, forward towards Venus. So, in a way, Mars, well, the Earth is sort of between. And the Earth is the battleground, represented by the cross. The Earth, in a way, is the disciple himself. So the Earth is the battleground, the cross. So a major determining factor prior to passing on the probationary path. Now this will be well before the first initiation, and Earth, Mars, and Pluto. Okay, I think I can see that due to the struggles. What does it say of the fifth petal in a treatise on cosmic fire? I think we can either look here around 537, somewhere right in there. It's a little bit later. The petal of love for the astral plane unfoldment is brought about through the process of gradually transmuting the love of the subjective nature or of the self within. This has a dual effect and works through onto the physical plane in many lives of turmoil, of endeavor and of failure, as a man strives to turn his attention to the real. Possibly Pluto can be used in the death process, the deglamorizing process, and Mars can stimulate a higher type of aspiration. So that's page 540 in a treatise on cosmic fire. I always like to use the egoic lotus as a model of man's unfoldment, the unfoldment of the human being, and try to connect the different stages in which different triangles and signs may be active with the unfolding of the egoic lotus, whether it's the, stimulating, organizing, unfolding, or opening of the petal. The four houses governed by the four non-sacred planets, not counting the sun, are houses of the personality mundanely oriented, and the reason is not far to seek. Well, the body at the first house and the dense physical vehicle of the moon at the fourth house, and well, we cannot count the sun. So if we can't count the sun, we certainly can't count the earth, because the earth is not really ruling any of the houses per se, and Pluto is ruling in one way, the process of generation or sex in the eighth house, and the entrapment through desire of the individual who is caught by vice, or let's just say by a very strong attraction to the elemental worlds. The seven remaining houses, four houses governed by the four non-sacred planets, not counting the sun. So what does the earth govern? Well, maybe we can do it by the process of elimination. The seven remaining houses, governed by the seven sacred planets, are not so purely material, nor are they so exoterically oriented, yet all the 12 indicate limitation, or that which withholds the dweller in the mansion from expanding his consciousness, if he permits himself to be imprisoned by them. On the other hand, they offer opportunity if he is oriented towards the higher life. So how would we look at this? I think he's kind of inviting us to do this. Vulcan, the seven sacred planets. So Vulcan, house 2. Mercury. And here's where we can't know for sure, house 3 or house 6. And Venus, house 2, but that's more sacred, and house 7. I'm just going out in order from the sun. Jupiter, house 12, well, house 9 or house 12. And Saturn, house 10. Or are we supposed to look at these esoterically? Now, Uranus, house 11, and Neptune, from the sacred point of view, well, it's house 12 or house 4, but 4 is already taken and 12 is not. 4 is taken. 12 is represented by Neptune. So in a sense, we can maybe cross out the house 12 here and cross out the house 4 here. Now we have, let's see, how do we look at this? Mars, house 1. Well, how does it go? Mars, Earth, Pluto. Pluto, house 8. And Moon, house 4. And it's almost like we have to include the Sun, the planet veiled, house 5. So have we left anything else? We have the first house, we have the second house of Vulcan, the third house of Mercury, the fourth house of the Moon, the fifth house of the Sun, the sixth house again of Mercury. And I'm beginning to see, sixth house of Mercury, the seventh house of Venus, but we have already Vulcan, which really can't be placed anyplace else. So Vulcan has to be considered the ruler here. And house 7 has to be Venus. House 8 is Pluto. House 9, well, it's Jupiter. House 10, Saturn. House 11, Uranus. House 12, Neptune. Now, what does the Earth rule? Really, all we have is the possibility of house 3 or house 6, because both Gemini and Virgo are related, but there is a sense, we'll cross out, well, let's say an Earth. Let's put it here. Earth, maybe, house 6, as the Virgin Mary is really Mother Earth. So that's possible. So these are possible ways of looking at the rulerships, whether they are mundane or in some sense more sacred. But we do have to include the Sun, don't we? The 4 houses governed by the 4 non-sacred planets, not counting the Sun, are the houses of personality mundanely oriented. Well, if we don't count the Sun, maybe we are going to count a planet ruled by the Sun or veiled by the Sun. So are we really counting a planet veiled by the Sun? The 7 remaining houses, so we have to use the Sun or the planet it veils. Thus, we have to use the Sun or the planet it veils. Govern the 7 sacred planets, are governed by the 7 sacred planets, are not so purely material, nor are they so exoterically oriented. Vulcan has to have a house, definitely. Yet all of the 12 indicate limitation, or that which withholds the dweller in the mansion from expanding his consciousness, and this, the crosses, or the arms of the crosses, do not do, if he permits himself to be oriented towards the higher life. Well, let's just say that Mercury had better remain the ruler of house 3, and that cross mark should be for house 6 and not for house 3. All right, I feel a little better about that. So some are sacred planets and others sacred houses, and others are houses mundanely oriented, though they all express a limitation or a type of prison for the soul in form. Yes, the planet veiled must be indicated. And when it comes to the moon, again, we would expect a hidden planet veiled. Well, can we make all of this make sense in terms of our present limitations and our possible growth? That is the question. Can we look at our horoscope and see these many, many different layers of meaning that the Tibetan suggests? Can we then intuitively grasp the state of our soul as it expresses within the lower form? This is what we must do if we're really going to be esoteric astrologers. I might again point out that Mars is the transmitter of sixth-ray force, and it is this which makes the first house of action in the physical body that of the devotee who fights for that which he desires and for that which he aspires. Action and idealism are related. And when I think of the personality of Mars and the possible other vehicles, and I'm trying to look at some sort of etheric physical demonstration, well, you know, there's a lot of activity there. There could be some first ray. I mean, after all, it is the red or the orange planet, and both red and orange can be connected with the first ray. The DK doesn't really say much about the personality vehicles of the planetary logoi. Perhaps they are not so important to consider. Like when you're thinking of the Earth, you know, you've got to think of the fourth ray somewhere and the third ray somewhere, and, you know, given the astral nature of the Earth, it's not going to be ray 2 yet, is it? Either ray 6 or 4, something of that nature. So the first house is the house of action in the physical body, but then why not call it the house of action within the causal body, or some higher state of identity? It just depends on the level of the individual that we are analyzing. The warrior devoted to a cause comes into being upon the field of action. The Earth, which is itself an expression of the third ray of intelligent activity. He's trying to tie together Mars and the Earth and Aries and the first house. We have plenty of warriors these days devoted to a cause. If you look what's going on in the Middle East and in neighboring countries and Pakistan and maybe in India, you know, we have warriors devoted to a cause. And they're coming into action on the field of the Earth. And they're in a high state of activity. Aries, the first house, and Mars and the Earth initiate conflict, focus in a form. Aries, the sign of initiating power, the first house associated with Aries. It's action. It's a house of action. And it's all working out on the field of the Earth. So this is a house of the one who goes forth, and quite regardless of his own conditioning and the conditioning of others, he tries to make an impact according to his ideals on one level and according to his deeper sense of identity or being on another level. Interesting, isn't it? The way the Tibetan sees the houses. So different in a way from that of many modern astrologers. But, you know, at first, the sophisticated astrologer is likely to look over these things and say, well, this isn't very sophisticated, doesn't mean much to me. But then he's not yet schooled in the interaction of all the energies, nor is he schooled in the way that the human being evolves through the different aspects of his nature. Not schooled yet. Again, the moon is the ruler of Cancer and is related to the fourth ray and rules the fourth house. So here, DK is bringing rays into the houses. DK brings rays into the houses. So let's anticipate idealism through Mars into the first house. And harmony through conflict. Okay, harmony. Oh, I wish, don't I wish. Through conflict, through the the moon into the 4th house. And he's going to bring love, wisdom, through the sun into the 5th house. Now, we decided that maybe the Earth should be connected with the 6th house. Certainly, you know, the assumption of the Virgin is in many ways the assumption or the rising up of the material vibratory nature of the Earth. But let's jump here to death, or let's just see will, power, and death through Pluto into the 8th house. Now, is it really good to put the Earth in relation to Virgo, which would also in a way relate it to the Pleiades? It's possible. The Earth also has a special relation to Taurus, but then, you know, where do you put Vulcan? In the 6th house? Maybe there's an interchange there. Vulcan and the Earth being, in a sense, quite at home in either the 2nd house or the 6th house. But as it is, Vulcan is a planet of the light in the house of the light. It fits. And Earth, says the Tibetan, is the field of service in one of the houses of service, which is Virgo, house 6. So that fits as well. So often we're talking about the expression of energies upon Earth, the field of service. Again, okay, the moon is the ruler of Cancer and is related to the 4th ray and rules the 4th house. Here you have an idea. Here you have the idea of form being the custodian of the living spiritual essence of the home, whether the home is the 4th or lowest aspect of the personality, namely the dense physical body, or the 4th kingdom in nature, but all ruled by the ray of harmony through conflict, a harmony to be wrought out within the form on Earth. So the mother of the form is the 4th ray, and through its the planet which it veils, a hidden planet, it is working out a stage of harmony in the difficult field of the non-responsive Earth. So what is the home really? You know, the home is the anchorage. Whoop. That's not what I want. Whoa. Something just disappeared. Okay, there we go. So the home is the vessel, the anchorage, and it has to be the custodian of a living spiritual essence. What is home to us when it comes to the moon veiling Neptune, a sacred planet? The home is the ashram, which has now found upon the Buddhic plane ruled by Neptune. The home is a very different thing, but it's always a place of refuge or a place in a way of escape from pursuing forces, something of a fortress against that which would disturb. So the dense physical vehicle is in some measure a protection. Dense physical vehicle shuts out many influences which would disturb, unsettle, disorganize, and so the refuge of the moon and the 4th house. Okay. The sun, he does continue. He says excluding the sun earlier, but he probably meant that you have to include whatever planet it is that's being veiled. And it can't be one of the sacred planets, otherwise the 7 and 5 that he's trying to work out here will not work. The sun, the transmitter of energy of the second ray, rules the fifth house, or mansion of the soul, the causal body in this case. Of course, the first house has much to do with the causal body, and he as much as says so later on page 517 or 18 or so. The force of Leo is also involved, the force of the self-conscious soul. Even the soul in the form can be considered self-conscious. It's consciousness within the form, and even if it's consciousness as the form, a self has been identified. The spiritual man, aware of his identity, says in this house, and that's when something else is veiled by the sun, I am the eternal cause of all creation. I am and I exist. So this can be said in the fifth house as well as I am, or I am something specific. The dualism of the second ray is first realized in the fifth house by man, the embodied fifth principle. Man is embodied higher mind in that sense. Man is embodied higher mind, the embodied fifth principle. Okay. Well, there's much of interest here, and much, I think, that is hidden. The dualism of the second ray is love and wisdom. Love and wisdom is first realized in the fifth house by man, who is the embodied fifth principle, because mind is the fifth principle and related to wisdom. Mind is the fifth principle. Well, let's get it straight. And related to wisdom aspect. But the love is also there because the heart is there, ruled by the fifth house. So what he says at first is I am, and then he names something about his physical body or his nature, his personality. He identifies in that way. But the spiritual man is also active. So here DK is showing the possible spiritual meanings of the houses, which is interesting. And this is a very important Leo mantram. We have I am that, I am that I am that, and that I am. And now we have let other forms exist, I rule because I am. And now we have another one, which I haven't really taken so much focus upon, and should. I am the eternal cause of all relations. So there really is identification with being here. I am the eternal cause of all relation. It's a monadic statement. I am and I exist. I want to say that this, from one perspective, is a very monadic statement. I am the eternal cause of all relation. In other words, I am the one, and out of me has emerged the many. So in the fifth petal, you know, you can be a very, very integrated personality, not very spiritual at all, and very proud of your integration and so forth. But then the king can fall. Humpty Dumpty can fall. The egg can break. The king can die, as it were. The lower ego can be seen as futile. And then a real sense of duality emerges, and that sense of the higher self may emerge. So the dualism, it may not be the dualism of the second ray, which is love and wisdom, but dualism can emerge with a great battle in the fifth petal, which, remember, can be considered as ruled counting forward either by Leo or counting backward by Sagittarius, or, if we start at Aries, or by Scorpio if we start at Pisces. And if dualism is revealed, then the battle between the dualities can really occur, many lives of turmoil. And there can be much about Scorpio in terms of the reversal of the wheel. And because it is the middle petal, it can be considered related to Libra, which is nominally the middle sign. So let's put it like this. Right here. I can. There is much about the fifth petal which suggests the reversal of the wheel. And Libra can contribute to that. Scorpio can certainly contribute to that. Even Sagittarius can orient the individual and direct him on the path to the higher of the pairs of opposites which is sensed. Pluto, transmitting first-ray energy, I suppose in its personality, rules Scorpio. Interesting that the Sun transmits second-ray energy. We're talking about personality rays here. And the solar logos definitely has a second-ray personality. Pluto, a first-ray personality. Mars, a sixth-ray personality, non-sacred. And Moon, a fourth-ray. Well, it doesn't really have a personality at all, does it? I mean, it's just a question of what it stands for. The Moon is dead, it's a veil. But somehow, when it was alive, it was correlated with other factors, and its movements still seem to bring to us the energy of those other factors. So Pluto brings in a first-ray energy ruled by Scorpio, the sign of discipleship, along with Virgo, I would say, of the man ready for fusion. First-ray energy rules Scorpio, the sign of discipleship rule. It's the sign of the man ready for fusion, brought about through the influence of the sacred planets, and it governs the house of major separations and of death. Kind of wonder when people get divorced if the battle doesn't occur somewhat in Libra in the 7th house, and the death of the marriage or the major separation occurring in the 8th house under Pluto. But if the battle is won, he's ready for the influence of the sacred planets. In other words, the lower part of the man is subdued and no longer is the threatening hydra it seemed before. So we have to bring our vices into a certain state of containment before it is possible for fusion with the soul under the sacred planets to begin to occur. The arrow of God pierces the heart and death takes place, but this is detachment. And related to Sagitta, or the arrow, which is found in relation to Capricorn, and perhaps oh goodness, perhaps it's a first decan. But in this connection, it must be remembered that death is definitely brought about by the soul. The word of death is sounded, the principle of mind then organizes itself and then repeats that word. The waiting soul, the waiting form responds and drops away. The soul stands free. This is from one of the healing laws. Yeah. It's from the 10th law and relates to discipleship rather than to a higher stage. It is the soul which shoots the arrow of death. The upward pointing arrow is the astrological symbol of Pluto. From what tradition, we don't know. There are many people who justify other glyphs for Pluto, and there's probably something to be said for them, but when a master tells you exactly what the astrological symbol is, it's probably best to go with what he says. So separations of major separations, not just minor ones, but ones that really indicate detachment, severance, detachment. So severance, detachment, death. And what the heart holds dear is taken away, but into the worlds of form that love must someday fail to penetrate. The second ray integration formula. The love of love must dominate. The love of love must not dominate. But into the worlds of form, that love must someday fail to penetrate. And this is the first step towards a deeper search. So we have to be detached, as the Buddha taught detachment, from our lesser loves. And the eighth house is, in a way, the house of detachment from lesser loves. We all, I suppose, love the physical body quite a bit, and it's the place of the detachment from the physical body, which is the normal death process. And then I suppose later, let's see, how is Sagittarius spelled? Sagittal. Well, something's wrong there. But I think that may be it, unless it's Sagitta in this way. Is that it? No, it's not. Doesn't look right. Sagitta, the arrow of pain along the Via Dolorosa, connected with initiation and with Capricorn. You can take similar symbols that you find in the different constellations, and you can kind of trace lines between them, and in this way discover relationships, definitely. Well, let's see, what else? It is only in the present cycle that the sun and moon veil certain planets and are the exoteric symbols for certain esoteric forces. What cycle this is, again, the word cycle, that most blinding term. As evolution proceeds, the planets will not be veiled. Their influences will not be so remote. Well, Vulcan is one of those, of course. But from another point of view, we're dealing with a couple of non-sacred planets, I suspect, one of which is hidden, and one maybe which we actually know about, but which is still non-sacred. At present, the mechanism of the majority of the human family is not tuned to the reception of rays from Vulcan, Uranus, Neptune. Hence the need for veiling, we might say, to make sure that the entire content of the planet does not impinge. So the majority of the human family is not tuned to the reception of rays. Well, by rays does he mean influences from these planets, or the actual rays which go through them, or somehow both? Whilst Pluto at present only evokes response from groups or from those disciples who are enough evolved rightly to respond. Well, I want to say here, Pluto in its higher meaning and function, because we've all seen that, many people are affected exoterically by Pluto, and it comes to them via circumstance. It doesn't come to them via change of consciousness. I mean, someone dies, there's a fire, there's a destruction. It seems to come from the outer world. So for many, I'll just put that down, for many who are not disciples, the influences of Pluto seem to come from circumstance or from the outer world, and not from inner changes of consciousness. Well, we're told that Pluto never kills consciousness. It's always, in a sense, a consciousness enhancer, because it usually brings about a detachment which frees the consciousness from its identification with lesser things. The three veiled planets, Vulcan, Uranus, Neptune, are all sacred planets embodying first, seventh, and sixth ray energies. Well, certainly these ray energies do tend to reach people one way or another, but usually on a lower turn of the spiral and related to the form. Vulcan is never an exoteric ruler, but strangely, I'll put that down strangely. For the undeveloped man, the moon is said to veil Vulcan, and Vulcan rules the dense physical body, which is not a principle. So it's never an exoteric ruler, but it has an influence which can be exoteric, though again, not coming from the soul, but apparently from circumstance. And it only comes into real activity, and that's the question of what is meant by real, because it certainly comes into activity before that, but maybe not what the Tibetan considers to be real activity, or activity in line with its higher purpose. Its higher purpose, when a man is on the path, whilst Uranus and Neptune are rulers of the 11th and 12th houses and govern Aquarius and Pisces, and the implication will be clear to you that the real, the real meaning of these houses on the reversed wheel, the real meaning of the houses comes in only on the reversed wheel. Houses comes in only on the reversed wheel. So the 11th and 12th house can have all kinds of mundane significances, but the true purpose of these houses associated with Aquarius and Pisces are, or is, revealed only on the reversed wheel. Well, those are synthetic houses, houses in which synthesis does occur. So the sacred planets definitely, let's see, sacred planets, sacrifice petals, sacred planets definitely have a influence, an exoteric influence, but it is not their, so to speak, real influence. The obduracy of matter, its resistance, its stubbornness, its refusal to move, you know. The density of matter is very Vulcanian in a way. The confusions and mirages and myopias of the astral plane is very Neptunian, and drastic chaotic events so much relate to Uranus. These are outer and negative factors that come in from the environment. But the true meaning of these planets comes in via the consciousness. There's definitely a triangle here of Vulcan, Uranus, Neptune, with Vulcan representing the physical body and the etheric aspect too. Uranus, the mind, and Neptune, the emotional vehicle. Uranus also has a connection with the etheric body. Well, I think we may have reached a point where we can, I think so, pause. This is the end of Esoteric Astrology Adventure 127C, page 509. We're going to come to some really interesting things here pretty soon, which are practical in terms of esoteric astrology. And beginning of Esoteric Astrology Adventure 128A, page 509. Very soon we're going to be looking at the chakras and the planetary rulerships of them and so forth. I think very soon, yes, we're about to enter some suggestions that the Tibetan makes, and I've seen many astrologers try to take advantage of these suggestions, and they are the substance of a number of esoteric astrology courses, including ones I've taught with Nicholas Nilen. We always go to these factors and the suggestions the Tibetan makes. So let's see if we can take those up the next time we come together, whenever that will be, beginning with 128A. So for now, I think we have done 3 programs here in this series, and that's enough. We'll see you later. Okay, very good. Bye-bye.